Good evening and welcome to CBC News. I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Nicole.
With the evening news. During the early morning hours on Sunday, an unidentified 19-year-old Peterborough area male attempted to break into the home of an elderly neighbor while intoxicated. Mistakenly thinking it was his home, as police arrived, they found the unidentified male sleeping on the front lawn of the victim's home. Now go to Ashley on scene where the crime took place just 24 hours ago.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin Nicole. I'm here on scene with Officer MacGyver that was present during the investigation last night with this incident of disturbance. Officer MacGyver, can you please let me know the details of what happened?
Yes, so last night the suspect was intoxicated and mistakenly tried to enter into the home of his neighbor, Mrs. Doubtfire. This was causing a disturbance to Mrs. Doubtfire, which is a criminal offense under Section 175, subsection 1 of the Criminal Code. The suspect will be charged accordingly.
Okay, thank you. And does the suspect being intoxicated have any effect on the charges or the conviction that he will receive?
No, this will not have an effect on the suspect's conviction because intoxication isn't a defense. Being drunk is included in the section of the Criminal Code, but they could attempt to use mistake of fact as a defense.
Okay, perfect, thank you. We were looking at previous case law, and it seems even though the suspect was not intending to cause a disturbance while he was intoxicated, specific intent is not required for disturbance. It is a general intent offense. And back to you, Caitlin and Nicole.
This sounds like it might be an interesting case. Have you ever heard of anything like it, Kate?
Well, there have been some similar cases. For example, R versus CD stipulates that annoyance or emotional upset is actually insufficient to constitute a disturbance. So, which is something for the defense lawyer to consider when they're defending their client.
Definitely. I wonder why the suspect wasn't charged with trespassing at night.
Well, that's also very interesting. They weren't intending to prowl on the property, or at least that's our current information. Therefore, the mens rea component would not be filled of that offense. So now we'll go back to Ashley, who's going to do an interview with the elderly victim.
Guys, I'm just here now this evening with Mrs. Doubtfire to get a report on the incident of what happened. I'm just going to hand it on over to her so she can give her point of view.
About 2 o'clock this morning when I heard some sort of disturbance by the front door. It sounded like somebody was trying to put their key in the lock, but it wouldn't work. Then I heard a disturbance around the side of my house near one of my windows by the kitchen. So I went down the stairs and into the kitchen area. No one was there. I couldn't see anyone through the window. But when I exited the house and went outside, I noticed someone or something lying on the lawn. When I approached, it appeared to be a young man sleeping on the front lawn. I had no idea what was going on or why he was there, so I called the police and I went into my house and locked the doors, closed the shutters just in case. People tend to choose elderly women for crimes. They're easy victims, so I wanted to keep myself safe. The police showed up and arrested the young man. I haven't been able to sleep since. I'm worried about somebody trying to break into the house. You never know who's out and about, and I just don't feel safe in my house anymore. So I'm thinking of putting the house up for sale, and I'm looking forward to getting the trial proceedings over with, so I can move on with my life and hopefully get some counseling for the emotional disturbance that this whole event has caused me.
Okay, yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, Mrs. Doubtfire. It definitely would be a horrifying fact having someone trying to break into your home. You don't know what's going on at that time of night, and especially when you're alone in the house, that could definitely be scary. Do you think that you will move somewhere that in the future won't be close to a college residency, as well as how do you think that the proceedings are going to go? I know you want to get them over with, but do you feel like he is going to be charged with the disturbance, and do you think he should be charged with trying to break and enter or any other charges? What's your personal opinion?
I think in the future, I may move into an old folks home. Seems safer in an old folks home where there's security by the door, passcode to get in, that kind of thing. I didn't want to move into an old folks home, obviously, but my daughter has been pushing it for a while now, and this has really pushed me to think about it. I just don't feel safe anymore. The disturbance that this has caused me is pretty severe, and I think that to teach the young man a lesson and for others to understand the disturbance and emotional upset that it's caused me, I think it'd be important maybe to press more severe charges. As I understand, disturbance isn't a severe criminal charge. So he did try to break and enter, so it's something that I think should be looked into.
Thank you, Mrs. Doubtfire, for taking the time this evening to speak with us and explaining your views and opinions on what happened to you. Caitlin and Nicole, what are your views on what should happen with the charges with the offender, and do you think that he should receive a harsher charge?
Welcome back. So, Nicole, you're a mother, correct?
Yes, I have a daughter the same age as the suspect, actually.
Wonderful. Maybe you could shed some light on how the defendant, if he is indeed 19, would be sentenced, if convicted, having no prior convictions.
You know, Kate, I just think that young adults make mistakes, and my daughter's off at college right now. I would be very upset with her if I heard this went on, but at the same time, I feel like a criminal conviction and a permanent record on your, like a permanent criminal record is a lot for a 19-year-old to
It is
handle.
a little severe.
If it were my daughter, like I don't know how I would handle that. I think that that's a very large sentence to hand down to like someone just coming out of the Youth Criminal Justice Act.
And also just learning how to live on their own and independently. Perhaps that this is the first weekend that they've ever been away from their parents.
Right, and from what I understand, the location was near residents, and I mean, college students, residents, understanding that the victim certainly didn't intend for this to happen, but like her residence was near that, and I'm sure that this may not have been the first incident of a similar nature.
Okay, so do you think that maybe that would be one of the mitigating factors for this case?
I think for sure that could be a mitigating factor if you have the correct judge.
Okay, very enlightening. Now back to
Thank you, Caitlin and Nicole, for your interesting perspectives on the charges. The moral of the story is students need to be more careful about how intoxicated they are getting, and that if they are leaving the bars, that they should either have someone escort them to their home or possibly take a taxi. That way they can tell them the address to make sure they arrive properly at their location, not their neighbors, as well as it's probably better off that seniors aren't living in a location where they're more susceptible to incidents like this, especially when it can be so traumatizing and stressful like it was to Mrs. Doubtfire. She would be much better off if she was in an area that didn't have college students roaming around with her neighbors, even though it's not an occurrence that happens all the time. They do, and it can affect their quality of life. As for the charges, in my own opinion, I believe that, as the officer had said, that they will just get charged with having a public disturbance. I don't believe that there will be a charge for the trespassing because there is no mens rea present, because he did not believe that he was breaking into another person's home. He thought he was getting into his own home, as well as that would be considered a mistake of fact, which would be the defense if the victim did try to accuse him and charge him of the trespassing. So I believe that in the end that he will only just receive a slap on the wrist as well as a disturbance charge. And thank you for joining us this evening on the news, and you stay classy, San Diego.